Hi. How are you guys? How are you guys doing? You're good? That's great. That's great that you're good. I guess it's pretty easy to see that I'm not that thrilled today, and that's because after a month, no, more than a month. Let me check. Since March 18th, I have been trying, testing, burning in, doing all the things, like swapping gear on my setup, changing everything that I could, trying different cables, trying different music, different sources, different everything. I have done everything that I could to try and give the KZ ASX a fighting chance to win me over. But unfortunately, after all that time, I'm still sitting here in front of the camera to tell you guys that it didn't, and that I will not be recommending it. Now, before we get started, for transparency, Linsoul did send the KZ ASX for me to review, and I will leave link to it down below in the description if you guys for some reason still want to check it out for yourselves. By all means, it's your choice. But I'll also leave links to a couple of other IEMs that I would personally urge you guys to consider in its place. Okay? Now let's get cracking. Why didn't I like the ASX? Well, short answer, the sound. This is usually the last thing or one of the last things that we talk about in an audio review, but in this case, there's just no escaping it. The ASX sounds terrible. It's shrill, it's way too aggressive, it's way too bright, there's no depth, there's no warmth, it's claustrophobic and muffled. I mean, right? I could keep going on, so I will. There's no body to the mid-range, the low end is disjointed, the sound signature is barren and uninteresting, which is not the same thing as being flat or neutral, by the way. Every frequency is fast, I'll give it that, but since it's way too aggressive, it just feels like it's drilling holes with needles through your skull to be able to put that detail in there. And I will grant the ASX at least the fact that yes, it can pick up quite a bit of detail, but it doesn't really compensate for everything else. It just feels like the entire curve has been either compressed downwards or upwards, whatever would make it sound the weirdest. And independently of what you're listening to, as soon as you hit play with those things in your ears, it just feels like you've turned on active noise cancelling. You know that noisy pressure you feel in your ears when you turn on active noise cancelling with, ANC headphones? That. Now, I'm actually sad to have to say all of this about the ASX. Truly, I am. This doesn't make me happy. For one, I have already told you guys that I've never been really in love with any of the IEMs I've tested from KZ. And come on, a new flagship coming into the market, if there was ever a moment for all of that to change, it was this one, right? Plus, I like liking things. I like to like stuff. I truly want to be able to say that everything I test and review is good or nice, at least in some way. To be able to, cater to some specific need from someone. And I don't really enjoy the fact that I know there are bad products out there because it means that someone, either by misinformation or just because they don't know any better, is going to purchase that, and it's consequently going to have a poor experience. And I don't wish that on anyone. And I am choosing to believe that despite this glowing red review I'm giving to the ASX, Linsoul is not going to be blacklisting me, but if they end up doing so, I will make sure to add that to the list of negatives about the ASX if anyone comes out asking about them. I'm sorry, really don't like it. But, I'm still a professional, so let's just go on with the other aspects of the review. Build-wise, the ASX is actually quite nice, which is just more fuel to the fire and gets me crazy because, just miss the mark on the build and deliver on the damn audio, will ya? It's entirely made out of plastic, and despite being rather dense, it's not too heavy. It's got a nice shape, but it's also a little bit too big, so for smaller ears, this might mean it won't necessarily, fit correctly, or at least super comfortably. As is, I have to use them barely pushed in, otherwise the included tips will not create a proper seal. Using foam tips will solve that particular issue, but they don't do enough to, vindicate the sound quality problems. You can sort of see things inside of the IEMs, although there is a bit of insulating foam or material that's probably being used to fixate the drivers in place. And the faceplate is metal and it has an interesting design, but that's about it. And it does come with a nice-ish cable, but not as nice as I was expecting from a flagship. Oh, and the unboxing experience is alright, but the care package, the stuff that accompanies the ASX, is kind of bare bones. it looks nice and all to open the box and have this metal plaque presenting the IEMs, but that's all useless fluff. And coming with just a single set of silicone tips, a nice but nothing special cable, no carrying case or bags, doesn't really seem like you're getting your money's worth, you know? In terms of impedance, these things are really easy to drive, and as far as I have tested at least, they don't distort. Either before you're already going deaf because you're just, pumping way too much volume in your ear canal, don't do that, your ears won't regenerate, take care of them, or before you end up, distorting stuff in a way that would make them sound even worse than they already do. Man, I'm acid today. Still, all that easiness for being driven stems from the fact that these things use only balanced armature drivers. 10 per ear to be precise, and I don't really know if BAs are usually or all of them this sensitive, but these ones definitely are. But despite this strategy of only using balanced armature drivers to be able to achieve a good level of audio with a good level of control and nice efficiency being, alright in theory, that all depends on how the crossover is set up to properly control all those different drivers at the same time. And in this case, well, either that crossover was set up by someone from opposite world where this mess is what passes by as good sound, or those balanced armature drivers that KZ has been putting in the ASX are definitely far from prime. Both of which are problems because, again, this is a flagship that costs $100. And from everything that I tried and all the tests that I ran, the only thing that made it somewhat listenable was actually using a Loki Mini Plus tone control as part of a setup that was pushing the ASX. And I'm sorry, but that's a $150 piece of equipment that you're supposed to use to fine-tune what your headphones or IEMs or your speakers put out. In terms of, I don't know, maybe you want to game with some specific headphone that you really like, but it just has way too much bass or way too little bass, you use something like the Loki Mini Plus to adjust that, fine-tune that. You shouldn't need to use that to make a $100 pair of IEMs not suck. I'm sorry, but that's not acceptable. Now, listen, if the ASX was a more entry-level sort of IEM, I would still be giving it a hard pass. But I would at least, urge KZ to do something about it, tweak a little bit of how it's EQ'd. Try to aim at something. You want them to sound like what? Like a more bassy IEM, a more detailed IEM? Because it doesn't feel like this went on as part of the process for building the ASX because it's way too disjointed and all over the place. It doesn't seem like it's trying to have a specific signature or aiming at a specific signature at that. But I'm sorry, pushing this as a flagship for $100, there are just way too many other options out there that are definitely more worthy of your money. So if you guys really like KZ stuff and you've been thinking about the ASX, or you just went like, whoa, 10 balanced armature drivers for $100, this could or should be really interesting, and if you've been thinking about going for them, don't. But also, KZ, you guys can do better. Come on, I believe. And that's been it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, so check out these other ones that might be of interest to you as well. Thank you a lot for watching. This is Gus, and I'll catch you guys later.